She was always such a nuisance, perpetually in my way. Until the bitter end, my husband spat out those words. It made me question if he was truly human at all. He was the worst, not just as a parent, but as a person. I'm sorry. I will avenge you, I declared, standing before the funeral attendees, reading the letter left by my daughter. As I read, my husband's face turned ashen. What the hell do you think you're doing? My father-in-law's angry voice echoed. The revenge was about to begin. My name is Elma, a 40-year-old housewife. I've been married to Carl for 15 years. We met in high school and became classmates in our sophomore year. We started talking after becoming desk mates and grew closer while working together on a school festival project. After the festival ended, he confessed, and we started dating. We continued dating through college. Carl moved out on his own, so I often visited his apartment. After graduation, we both started working and got busy, but we still made time for dates and meals out. Once we both started earning more, we enjoyed traveling during our holidays. I cherished those trips we took while dating. 3 years into our working lives, we decided to get married. We had saved enough for a wedding and had settled into our jobs, so it felt like the right time. Since we had dated since high school, we already knew each other's families, making meeting the parents and house visits go smoothly. Many people attended our wedding, including our high school classmates celebrating our union. Afterward, we started our married life full of joy. Even though we'd been together for over 8 years since high school, we felt fresh and excited in our married life. It felt real when my last name changed to his. We were having a smooth marriage. 3 years later, our daughter, Rosa, was born. "Wow, she looks like an angel. So cute," Carl exclaimed, holding our newborn daughter. "I'll work my butt off to protect our family," he declared. "Thank you. Be our rock," I replied. "You can count on me," he assured confidently. With a new member to protect, my husband seemed larger than life and very reliable. After giving birth, I worked part-time in his company. The first reason was to have more time with our child. Raising her was incredibly joyful, and every little milestone, like crawling or walking, was a moment of excitement. I took countless photos and videos like any proud parent. When I told Carl, he'd say, "I wish I could have seen that," with a tinge of regret. We spent blissful days playing with our daughter on his days off. As Rosa grew, she became conversational. We loved taking her to different places and letting her have various experiences. We were excited about thinking of her future dreams and the path she would take. But everything changed when Rosa was in the 3rd grade. I was working part-time when suddenly I got a call from the hospital. Rosa had collapsed during class. I rushed to the hospital in a panic. My husband left work early to be there too, and we listened to what the doctor had to say. That's when we were hit with the shocking truth. Our daughter had a rare disease, depending on the treatment. The doctor's words echoed in my ears. "She probably has about a year to live." My mind went blank. My daughter had an incurable illness, and all we could do was use medication to ease the symptoms. But it wouldn't halt the progression of the disease. We were devastated. Why would God give such a harsh punishment to such a small child? Why did it have to be my daughter? As time went by, she grew weaker. 6 months later, walking became difficult, and she could no longer go to school. Our days were spent shuttling to the hospital and lying in bed at home. Gradually, she couldn't even get out of bed and became completely bedridden. I quit my part-time job to take care of her full-time. I had to quit because something could happen while I was away. It was crucial that we supported her with all we had. However, it was around this time that my husband's attitude began to change. He would easily get in a bad mood when he was at home. "Honey, you're home? Dinner's ready," I would say. "Yeah, huh, why fish?" He'd respond. "Well, it was on sale today," I'd explain. "What, are you kidding me?" He'd snap. "Huh, I'm coming home tired from work, and you serve fish? That's odd. Normally, you'd prepare something more substantial like meat to help rebuild strength." "I'm sorry," I'd apologize. "Just get it right, will you? Don't you know who's providing the meals here?" He would grumble as he ate his dinner. I was puzzled by his sudden change in behavior. After that, he kept complaining about something every time we met. The house was always tense when he was around. Yet it was peaceful and calm when it was just my daughter and me. I would get anxious just knowing he was coming home. Why was he so irritable all the time? Then, at some point, he started coming home late. He said it was overtime work, but to be honest, I felt relieved when he came home late. It was mentally exhausting when he was around, but at the same time, I also felt lonely. He had completely stopped caring about our daughter. Hey, talk to Rosa more, will you? I asked him. What? I'm tired, okay? You take care of her during the day. That's enough. Anything more is coddling, he replied. What's that supposed to mean? I said. Coddling? My daughter was fighting hard to live with her illness. 2 years had passed since her diagnosis, and she was still striving to live, although she was given about a year to live. She wanted to keep living at home with her strong spirit. Why couldn't my husband praise her for her efforts? She could pass away at any time. It's insane to be annoyed by the need to be involved as a parent, I thought. Later on, my husband's overtime increased, and he began to stay out overnight more often without any message to me. Where on earth could he be, and was he really that busy with work? But as much as I wondered, I had developed an aversion to him, so the days without him felt more comfortable. Even when he was home, I barely spoke to him, and he seemed to sense the atmosphere and didn't try to talk to me more than necessary. Yet my daughter seemed sad about it. Did you and Dad fall out? She asked. Huh. But you hardly ever talk when you're together, right? Most of the time, I hear voices. You're fighting. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to worry you. I apologized. But it's okay. We're not on bad terms, really. Yes, true, Dad's just really busy with work, so when he's home, he's resting. That's why I don't talk to him much, so he can get some rest. Oh, I see. Our daughter seemed a little relieved, but she also seemed sad that her dad wasn't talking to her much. Did Dad start to dislike me after I got sick? She questioned. That's not true at all. A parent can't hate their child. Like I said, he's just busy with work. Don't worry. He doesn't hate you, okay? I got it. After putting our daughter to bed and leaving her room, I sighed. Why am I causing her to worry like this? She's in a life or death situation, and I'm troubling her with this. I gathered my courage and spoke to my husband when he came home. Hey, Rosa is feeling lonely. She's wondering if you started to dislike her after she got sick. I said. My husband, who had been listening reluctantly, seemed surprised that our daughter would say such a thing and finally looked at me. Yes, she did. So please, even if it's just a little, talk to her. She's lived past the life expectancy she was given, so it wouldn't be strange if we lost her anytime. Let's make sure neither of you has any regrets, okay? I got it, he said begrudgingly and in a low voice. The next day was Sunday, so I deliberately created time for just my husband and daughter to be together, and I went out to the store for a couple of hours. When I returned home, I asked him, Did you get to talk to Rosa? Yeah, we talked about various things. That's good then. I was glad if it was for our daughter's sake. But then my husband started to get ready to go out. Huh, are you going somewhere? Yeah, I'm going out to eat with a friend. Why don't we all have dinner together as a family? Ah, I've been invited, so I can't say no. I've done my part by talking to Rosa. It's time for you to let me go. Saying that, he left the house. What does he mean, let me go? I felt like nothing had been resolved. Maybe my husband was just going through the motions out of obligation. At that moment, I decided to stop expecting anything from him. It was enough if I cherished our daughter. That's what I thought, and I focused more on making conversation with her. Then, one day, my husband came home in a bad mood. Hey, get dinner ready quickly, okay? I had stopped trying to say anything to my husband, so I prepared dinner, put it in front of him, and was about to go to our daughter's room when he stopped me. Hey, pack a week's worth of clothes in the duffel bag. Huh. I've got a business trip. Make sure you pack all the essentials. Like the razor, too. He said, then went to take a bath without even clearing his dishes. Why do I have to do this? But surely, if the bag wasn't packed by the time he got out of the bath, he would get pretty mad. And if he raised his voice, it would worry our daughter if she woke up. I sighed and went into his room to pack the clothes into the duffel bag. Well, it's a relief. He'll be gone on a business trip for a week. With him gone, I can relax. I packed the bag and left it in his room. The next morning, my husband left without thanking me or saying anything. That annoyed me, but I decided to let myself do as I please. First, I called my parents to come and see our daughter. If my husband is away for a week, my folks can stay over without any worry. They seemed torn, happy to see their granddaughter, but saddened to see her bedridden. They were all smiles in front of her. But once she fell asleep, their faces were filled with pain and loneliness. It really is unfair of God, they said. Why couldn't it be an old-timer like me instead of a good kid like Rosa? My parents stayed until the very last minute before my husband was due back. Rosa had been happy to talk to her grandparents after so long. As time went on, Rosa's condition worsened, and she had to be hospitalized. I was overcome with the fear that it might be soon. I visited her in the hospital every day, but my husband never came to visit. Instead, when he returned home early, he would send me angry messages on WhatsApp, upset about not having dinner ready. I was beyond sighing at this point. I thought it would be better if I didn't have a husband who couldn't cherish his own daughter. But without him working, I couldn't spend all this time with her. As painful as it was to admit, his work allowed me these moments with her. Not only my parents but also my in-laws came to visit her often at the hospital. Rosa always seemed happy when someone came to see her. We even celebrated her 12th birthday in the hospital room where the nurses prepared a cake, and we all celebrated together. But about a month after her birthday, Rosa's condition worsened, and she passed away. I was devastated and broke down crying. No matter how much I had braced myself, the reality shattered my emotions. My parents tried to comfort me, but they ended up crying with me. Still, we had to see Rosa off properly. Together with my parents, I arranged and prepared for the funeral. There were things I had to do, all for Rosa. I managed to hold back my tears and proceed with the funeral arrangements. We arrived at the funeral parlor early before the other mourners. My husband was irritable about having to get up early after coming back from his business trip the day before. It was infuriating. He hadn't been reachable when Rosa passed away, and he had the gall to say, "I was on a business trip. Even if you had contacted me, I could have made it back." He tried to light a cigarette in frustration. "Go to the smoking area, please," I said sharply. He looked irritated after I called him out. Standing by the coffin on his way to smoke, he said something awful to our sleeping daughter. "You were such a pain, always in my way." Right to the end, my husband spat out such things as if they were nothing. Is he really human? He's the worst, not just as a parent, but as a person. I was rendered speechless by the horrible things my husband said. I couldn't move from the spot until my husband walked towards the smoking area. When I came to, I went straight to the coffin. "I'm sorry. I will take revenge in your place," I told my daughter, steeling myself with determination. I could never forgive him. Then the funeral began. Unbelievably, my husband, who had just said such terrible things, pretended to cry in front of the relatives, saying Rosa's name as tears streamed down his face. I knew it was an act because I saw him apply eye drops before walking up to the coffin. The relatives, not knowing any better, misunderstood and started crying too. Unforgivable. I would reveal his true nature no matter what. As the funeral was drawing to a close, it was time to read the letter left by my daughter. "What? There's a letter?" My husband was clearly surprised, not having known about it. "Yes, there is. I have to properly convey the words she left behind to everyone." I stood before the funeral attendees and began to read my daughter's letter aloud at the microphone. The letter was mostly words of gratitude to me for the care I had given her. With each word I read, tears came and I choked up. The relatives also started to cry along. As I got to the part about my husband, I took a deep breath. "To Dad," I read as the tears naturally stopped. "Against Mom, who was always by my side. You seemed to avoid coming home as if you were avoiding us. Even when you came home, all I could hear was your voice yelling at her. In my room, Dad used to make time to play with me when I was little, taking me on drives to all sorts of places. But after I got sick and became bedridden, Dad seemed like a completely different person. Mom always pretended to be strong in front of me, but I could tell she was really struggling with how Dad was behaving. It hurt me, thinking maybe it was my fault things turned out this way, but it seems that wasn't the case. Remember the day Mom went shopping, and it was just Dad and me at home? You came to my room and talked to me then, maybe because Mom asked you to. I was so happy. It felt like the old Dad had come back. But then, thinking I was asleep, you took a phone call. You were talking to a woman I don't know. I heard everything. You were planning a week-long trip. Did you enjoy the Disney trip you went on behind our backs? And you told that woman on the phone that you loved her. Hearing that, I realized you don't care about Mom or me anymore. So please, after I'm gone, divorce Mom. Don't make her unhappy anymore. Let her be free from you. When I finished reading the letter, the room was buzzing. My husband stood there, pale as a ghost. What the hell are you doing? My father-in-law's angry voice boomed. The revenge had begun. My husband just stood there, speechless, stuttering. Ah! My father-in-law grabbed him by the collar and yelled, "You fool!" before striking him across the face. My husband, staggering, denied the affair, saying, "It's not what it looks like. There must be some mistake." What's the mistake? Rosa would never lie, but I haven't had an affair. My husband stuck to his denials. Holding the microphone, I told him, "I've already caught you. Stop with the futile resistance." Yes, I had seen my daughter's letter beforehand and hired a private investigator. I had gathered plenty of evidence of my husband's affair. I showed the photo on my smartphone to everyone at the funeral. All the relatives attending glared at my husband. How could you go on an affair trip when your own child's life was hanging by a thread? You're finished as a human being. I didn't raise you to be such a terrible adult. Mom, Dad, you're no son of ours anymore. We disown you. How could you? My husband just collapsed on the spot. I was just trying to escape the pain. I didn't want to face the reality that my daughter had become like that. What was he even saying? That's no excuse for having an affair, and if that were true, you would have spent more time with Rosa. Don't lie now when we've come so far. I heard from your parents you were asking them for money for Rosa's medical expenses because it was so costly. I never heard a word about it. That means you were using the money your parents sent for your own pleasure, right? You exploited your daughter's illness to collect money and have an affair, didn't you? Don't give me that. How dare you do such low things and then talk about suffering? Rosa was the one suffering the most, fighting desperately to survive her illness. To have a father like you, Rosa was the one to be pitied. You're not wanted at this funeral. Get out of here right now. I shouted at my husband with all my might. He fell on his butt, let out a small yelp, and then hurriedly ran away from the place. After that, I reset and continued with my daughter's funeral. After it was over, my in-laws apologized deeply and offered to help with the divorce and alimony in any way they could. I proceeded with the divorce and demanded alimony through a lawyer introduced by my father-in-law. But that wasn't enough for me, so I took the house my husband had bought, and I also told everyone at his workplace about what he had done. My ex-husband, who had made it to the position of manager, quickly lost all credibility at the company and was demoted and sent to work in a remote location. He asked his affair partner to come with him, but she promptly dumped him, saying she had no interest in a man without money. In the end, to his affair partner, my ex-husband was just a rich plaything. My ex-husband was abandoned by his parents and relatives, left to work alone in a distant place, living a lonely life in his house. It's all what he deserves, and honestly, I'd like to beat him up to my heart's content if I could. Meanwhile, I sold the house I got from my ex-husband and moved back to my parents' house. With the alimony from my ex-husband and his affair partner, I had a considerable amount of money. I didn't feel like working for a while after my daughter passed away, But gradually, I started to think more positively and began working part-time at a cafe near my parents' house. Mom's homemade cake. Rosa loves it so much. I remember my daughter saying that. Now, I bake sweets every day while working at the cafe and honing my pastry skills. I hope to one day serve my own creations on the menu. Just like how my daughter was happy eating my cake, I want to see someone else smiling while eating my cake. For my daughter's sake, I have to live my life to the fullest. With that thought, I put my all into working towards my dream today.